The Hundred Years' War, a brutal and complex conflict, raged for over a century, leaving an indelible mark on the histories of England and France. This prolonged period of warfare was not just a single, continuous war, but rather a series of interconnected conflicts that spanned generations. It wasn't a single war, but rather a series of intertwined conflicts, fueled by a tangled web of dynastic disputes, economic rivalries, and power struggles. These disputes were deeply rooted in the political and social fabric of medieval Europe, making the conflict inevitable and inescapable. At its heart lay a seemingly simple question: who would rule France? This question, however, was anything but simple, as it involved complex claims of inheritance and legitimacy that would be contested fiercely by both sides. In 1328, the death of Charles IV of France, without a male heir, ignited the tinderbox. His passing left a power vacuum that would soon be filled with conflict and ambition. Edward III of England, Charles's nephew, saw an opportunity to press his claim to the French throne. Edward's claim was based on his maternal lineage, which he believed gave him a legitimate right to rule France. The French, however, crowned Philip VI, Charles's cousin, as their king, rejecting Edward's claim based on ancient laws barring female inheritance. This decision was influenced by the Salic law, which prohibited succession through the female line. This dispute over rightful succession became the catalyst for generations of bloodshed. The question of who had the legitimate right to the throne would lead to numerous battles, sieges, and skirmishes over the next century. The conflict also had deep economic roots. The economies of both England and France were heavily intertwined, and control over key economic resources was a major factor in the war. England and France were locked in a struggle for control of the lucrative Flemish wool trade, a vital source of wealth for both nations. The wool trade was not just an economic asset, but also a strategic one, as it provided the financial means to sustain prolonged military campaigns. The English Channel, a narrow strip of water, separated these rivals, transforming it into a watery battleground for control of trade routes and maritime dominance. Naval battles and blockades became a common feature of the war, as both sides sought to disrupt each other's supply lines. Beyond economics and lineage, the war was also about power, prestige, and the very notion of national identity. The conflict helped to shape the emerging national identities of both England and France, as each side sought to assert its dominance and legitimacy. For over a century, these two emerging nations would clash on the battlefields of France, their destinies intertwined in a deadly embrace that would shape the course of European history. The Hundred Years' War left a legacy of destruction and transformation, influencing the political landscape of Europe for generations to come. The early decades of the Hundred Years' War were marked by stunning English victories, fueled by military innovation and strategic brilliance. These victories were not just a matter of luck or sheer force. They were the result of meticulous planning, superior tactics, and the effective use of new military technologies. English longbowmen, wielding powerful longbows capable of raining deadly volleys of arrows from afar, proved devastatingly effective against traditional French knights. The longbow, with its impressive range and power, allowed English forces to strike from a distance, disrupting the heavily armored French cavalry before they could even engage in close combat. These archers, drawn from the yeomanry of England, became a defining symbol of English military might. Trained from a young age in the art of archery, these yeomen were not just soldiers, they were a formidable force that could turn the tide of battle. Their skill and discipline were unmatched, making them a crucial component of the English army. In 1346, at the Battle of Crécy, English forces led by Edward III himself shattered a much larger French army. This battle was a turning point in the war, showcasing the effectiveness of the English tactics and the devastating power of the longbow. Edward's leadership and the discipline of his troops were key factors in this overwhelming victory. The longbow proved its worth, decimating the charging French cavalry and securing a decisive English victory. The French knights, despite their bravery and heavy armor, were no match for the relentless volleys of arrows. The battlefield was littered with fallen knights and horses, a testament to the deadly efficiency of the English archers. This triumph sent shockwaves through France, demonstrating the effectiveness of the English military machine. The news of the defeat spread quickly, causing panic and despair among the French populace. The once invincible French knights had been humbled, and the morale of the French army was severely shaken. Another crushing defeat awaited the French at the Battle of Poitiers in 1356. This battle further solidified the reputation of the English army as a formidable force. The French, despite their numerical superiority, were unable to withstand the tactical brilliance and disciplined execution of the English forces. Edward, the Black Prince, Edward III's son, displayed tactical genius, outmaneuvering and routing the French forces. His leadership on the battlefield was exemplary, and his ability to inspire and command his troops played a crucial role in the English victory. The Black Prince's reputation as a brilliant military commander was cemented by this triumph. The French king, John II, was captured, dealing a severe blow to French morale and solidifying English dominance. The capture of a reigning monarch was a significant event, sending shockwaves through the French nobility and further demoralizing the French army. It was a clear indication of the shifting balance of power in favor of the English. These victories forced the French to the negotiating table. The repeated defeats and the capture of their king left the French with little choice but to seek peace. The English, on the other hand, were in a strong negotiating position, able to dictate terms that were highly favorable to them. The Treaty of Brétigny, signed in 1360, ceded vast territories to England, including Aquitaine in southwestern France. This treaty marked a significant territorial gain for the English, expanding their influence and control in France. The terms of the treaty were a testament to the effectiveness of the English military strategy and their ability to capitalize on their victories. England appeared poised to achieve its ambition of controlling a significant portion of France. The victories at Crécy and Poitiers, along with the favorable terms of the Treaty of Brétigny, positioned England as a dominant power in the region. The English nobility and military leaders were confident in their ability to maintain and expand their holdings, setting the stage for the next phase of the Hundred Years' War. The Hundred Years' War was a conflict defined by larger-than-life figures, both on and off the battlefield, shaping the course of history. Kings, princes, and military commanders rose to prominence, their names etched indelibly into the annals of history. Edward III, the ambitious and ruthless English king, ignited the conflict with his bold claim to the French throne. His military successes at Crécy and Poitiers cemented his legacy as a brilliant and innovative military strategist. His son, Edward, the Black Prince, further enhanced the reputation of English arms with his daring and audacious exploits. On the French side, Charles V, known as Charles the Wise, emerged as a shrewd and capable leader, steering France through turbulent times. Recognizing the need for reform, he reorganized the French army, emphasizing discipline and strategy over outdated chivalric notions and traditions. His efforts laid the essential groundwork for a French resurgence. But perhaps the most enduring figure of the war is Joan of Arc, a young peasant girl who rose from obscurity to become a national heroine of France, inspiring generations. Driven by visions and a fervent belief in her divine mission, Joan rallied the demoralized French troops, leading them to a decisive victory at the Siege of Orléans, a pivotal turning point in the war. The second half of the Hundred Years' War witnessed a dramatic shift in fortunes. What began as a seemingly unstoppable English campaign gradually turned into a resilient French defense and eventual resurgence. French resilience, coupled with English setbacks and internal divisions, gradually turned the tide of the conflict. The French, who had been on the back foot for so long, began to find their footing, while the English struggled with internal strife and waning morale. Charles V's reforms began to bear fruit, as the French army, now better organized and equipped, adopted Fabian tactics, avoiding pitched battles and instead engaging in a war of attrition. These tactics, named after the Roman general Fabius Maximus, focused on wearing down the enemy through small, strategic engagements rather than large-scale confrontations. English fortunes waned as the charismatic leadership of Edward III and the Black Prince faded. Their deaths left a leadership vacuum, that the subsequent English commanders struggled to fill, leading to a series of military blunders and lost opportunities. Military setbacks, coupled with the Black Death, a devastating plague that ravaged Europe, weakened England's grip on its French territories. The plague decimated populations, including soldiers, and created economic turmoil, further straining England's war efforts. The year 1429 marked a pivotal turning point, the Siege of Orléans. This siege was not just another battle. It was a symbol of hope and despair for both sides, representing the larger struggle for control over France. The city, strategically located on the Loire River, held immense symbolic importance for both sides. For the French, it was a bastion of resistance. For the English, its capture would signify a decisive blow to French morale and control. French morale was at an all-time low, with Orléans on the verge of falling to the English. The defenders were exhausted, supplies were dwindling, and hope seemed all but lost. It was then that Joan of Arc, a young peasant girl claiming divine guidance, arrived on the scene. Her arrival was nothing short of miraculous to the beleaguered French forces, who saw in her a beacon of hope and divine intervention. Joan's unwavering faith and charisma had an electrifying effect on the French army. Her presence galvanized the troops, instilling in them a renewed sense of purpose and determination. She was not just a symbol, she was a leader who inspired action. She inspired the demoralized troops, leading them in a series of assaults that broke the English siege. Her strategic insights and fearless leadership turned the tide, transforming a desperate situation into a triumphant victory. The miracle at Orléans, as it came to be known, breathed new life into the French war effort, marking a turning point in the conflict. This victory was more than just a military success. It was a profound psychological boost that reinvigorated the French cause and set the stage for future triumphs.